Hey guys, Titan Apprentice, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is 10 skills to get you through the next Great Depression. Last week I did tips, so what's the difference? A tip is something that someone can tell you. A skill is something that you're going to have to learn on your own and you're going to have to work on to get better at. Let's kick this list off with the first skill I recommend you have for the next Great Depression, and that is gardening. Learning how to grow your own food. Growing your own food is a lot like printing your own money. But it takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy, it takes knowledge to learn what works in your area, to learn what works for you. How are you going to grow a garden? Are you going to put it in the ground? Are you going to do raised beds? Are you going to do container gardening? It's all about learning what works in your area, what works for you, what you have time for. Are you going to eat what you grow? Because if you're not going to eat it, what's the point in growing it when you can use that space for something else? Or do you have a neighbor that you can trade with because he likes sweet potatoes but you don't? Learning how to garden and doing it now, again, is like printing your own money. We see the cost of things going up, the price of inflation going up, everything at the grocery store is almost double in price now. Print your own money. Go grow your own food. Skill number 2, hunting, fishing, and trapping. Now, at least for a short period of time, this is going to be a very valuable skill. Hunting, fishing, and trapping means food on your table, if you know what you're doing and you know where to go. Now, the amount that you bring home will probably go up and down. It'll probably dwindle for a little while and maybe it'll rebound, maybe not. Because you got to think of DNR and whatever is in your area and how many millions of dollars they spend to put deer, to put elk, to put trout, to put catfish, to put all these different types of animals out in the wild. Now, your small game, they normally don't care about, right? But your larger game, they do a lot of tracking. They make sure that those animals are fine. They don't have diseases. They're not reproducing at low rates, right? They spend millions of dollars every single year to make sure that the recreational hunters and fishermen have something to go out and go for. If we had an economical downturn, that would shut off because that is a federally government regulated organization. DNR would shut down. And DNR officers wouldn't be a thing, so every Tom, Dick, and Harry would be out hunting, fishing, trapping what they could. Again, if you can do it, especially early on, that's meat on your table. Now, as the progression goes on, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to be out there doing the same thing, so the amount of animals that you can catch and kill, they're going to dwindle down. But at least for the first little while, hunting, fishing, and trapping are going to be great skills to know. Moving on to skill number 3, and that is foraging. The difference between foraging and the others is the food doesn't run. Being able to go out in your front yard and pick things that are often overlooked as your next meal. Dandelions, we have wild onions, acorns, just to name a few. Knowing the difference between, oh, this is good and this is poisonous, that is your next meal. Sure, it's not a nice red-blooded animal, but it's something. Knowing how to cook it right, knowing how to fix it, what parts of this plant you can eat, what parts of this plant you can't. If you're lost in the woods and you've got absolutely nothing to eat, but you know, okay, I can walk through these woods and find my next meal, well damn, you're good, right? Same thing during an economical downturn. If you can go out and pick enough acorns and make acorn bread every single day, well, that's money you're not spending on white bread or wheat bread from the store. That's money that you're not buying in flour or cooking supplies to make your own bread. It's acorn bread, it's different, but it's free. All you have to do is take the time, the energy, and effort to pick the acorn up off the ground. Skill number 4, speaking of edibles, speaking of things that are edible, cooking. How to cook from scratch and how to cook with very little ingredients and how to substitute said ingredients. One thing that I didn't know is that if you didn't have eggs to bake a cake, you could put applesauce in there. I didn't know that. I learned it. Well, now that's something else I know. During the Great Depression, they had all of these recipes that either required very little ingredients or very different ingredients than what you were used to. The fake apple pie had absolutely no apples in it. It was vinegar and some other ingredients. They had a 3-ingredient peanut butter potato candy. They were using potatoes as a flour mix, basically. Would you know how to do that if all you had was peanut butter and potatoes? Would you know how to make a candy from it? A delicious snack for your kids? Probably not. But they did then. They figured it out. They just started throwing things together and saying, oh, this works, this doesn't work. This is how we can make this stretch. And again, I said last week that everything went in a pot. Yeah. Mix it up, throw some beef broth in it or some beef bouillon cubes. It might not taste good separately, but you mix it all up, you get all them flavors mixing together, it's probably pretty good. Learn how to cook from scratch. Palmetto Prepared does a great job at this by teaching you how to do your own breads, teaching you how to do your own stuff from your garden and what you can make from it. Tip number 5, how to make soap. Soap's very important. It's not a top 10 list, but being able to stay clean keeps you from getting sick. You getting sick means you can't work the field or you can't work your job, you can't bring money home. Staying clean is important. A lot of people often overlook it because it's not Gucci, it's not guns, gear, ammo, things that go boom. It's soap. Nowadays, homemade soaps are like all the rage, and every hipster on the street corner is doing it. But they have a valuable skill that I don't know. They have a valuable skill that they know and can make money off of. That's important. And learning how to make soap from things that are leftovers or scraps, like lard and maybe bacon grease. I don't know if you can do it, but if you can, well, there's you free bacon grease from the pig you just killed. Use it to make your soap, then go sell your soap. Or use that soap, right? Being able to make things work over and over and over again for you is very important. Being able to stay clean in a dirty situation is also very important. Skill number 6 is sewing. Being able to patch things up, being able to fix things, being able to mend holes. Very, very important, especially when you don't have money to replace it. If you got a pair of pants and you get a hole in it, nowadays we just go throw them away and buy new ones. If that's your only pair of pants, you best make them last. Because if you ain't got enough money to replace them, then what? Well, I guess you're cutting them into Daisy Duke shorts. Being able to patch that hole, fix it, and make it useful for another 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, 12 months, a year is very important. Because you never know when you're going to be able to replace that shirt, those pants, that jacket. And that skill is one of those where people would come to you for that one skill. Because if you're the only person in town that knows how to sew, guess what? You're the most valuable person in the town for that area, for that certain thing. Everyone wears clothes, hopefully. Everyone's going to get holes in those clothes. You're the only person that has a sewing machine and knows how it works and knows how to sew. You're a very valuable person. Learn how to sew. Skill number 7, being able to preserve and can your own food. Now we talked about growing food. We talked about foraging for food. We talked about going out and hunting, fishing, and trapping for food. But none of that matters if you don't know how to preserve it. Your awesome spring garden that you grew and is getting 1 million potatoes doesn't matter if all of those potatoes go rotten within a week or two. That big old deer you just got, if you can't preserve it in some way, shape, or form, that's a 1 day or maybe a 2-day meal. Can you eat an entire deer in 2 days? Maybe. But if you can preserve it, well, now you can save it up. Now you can still be eating that deer during the winter time. You killed it in the spring. Now you can go and you can trade that preserved meat for something you need, for something important you need, because someone else needs good, hearty protein and you need something from them. Being able to can, preserve, smoke, salt preserve, or maybe even freeze dry if you're lucky enough to have one, your own meat, both on-grid and off-grid methods. So in case the power goes out or you lose power, you have a way to do it off the grid. That is very important. Skill number 8, barter and trade. Preppers talk about barter and trade all the time. SHTF, barter and trade this, barter and trade that. Learning how to barter and trade with your neighbors, with the people up the street, with the guy from the next town over. Right now we trade time for money and that money for stuff. If the monetary system goes out, if we can't go to the banks, if the banks are shut down, whatever happens, you need to learn how to barter and trade. Because I could give away all of my ammo for 1 pound of meat, or maybe I could barter and trade better and give all my ammo away for 1,000 pounds of meat. That's a big difference. Knowing when you're getting a good deal, knowing when you're getting a bad deal, knowing when you should trade stuff. If it's summertime and everyone's trading the produce that they grew in the spring, well, guess what? The value goes down. So now everyone's trying to get rid of it. Supply and demand, the value's down because the supply's high. But if you can preserve that stuff and save it for later, well, now in the wintertime when everyone needs springtime crops, your stuff has a higher value. Skill number 10 is entertainment. Now, a lot of people forget about entertainment, but there was a lot of board games that were made during the Great Depression. There was a lot of weird events during the Great Depression that kept people happy enough or entertained enough that way they forgot about the shitty situation that they were in. Right? Movies were a big thing back then. Maybe you had a dime or a nickel, whatever it cost, and you could go spend an hour in the theater. There was a lot of dance-offs. One dance-off lasted for like 36 hours, and all it was is a lot of people showed up, they danced for some free food, and then the final person won a little prize. Being able to entertain your kids, right? If the TV gets shut off, the iPads get shut off, how do you entertain 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds? What about teenagers, right, that are always too busy texting? Can you entertain them? Can you make up games? A lot of games were created. Monopoly was one of them that was entertainment for the family at a cheap price, at least back then, and it gave you hours of entertainment because that game is always changing depending on who's playing. Phase 10 is a great one for me and my family, at least me and my wife and our friends, because we can play Phase 10 for hours. You get 3, 4, 5 people in there, dude, that's a 5, 6 hour game. And the number 10 skill for a second Great Depression is the ability to adapt. Some people are so set in their ways that it has to be this way or it completely ruins their day. Some people don't care. And I'm one of those people. I go to work and something happens. I'm like, oh, okay. I can sit here and I can be mad and I can fuss about it and I can let it ruin my day. Or I can adapt to it. Not only adapt day by day, but adapt for the seasons. Obviously, it took those people 10 years to adapt to the Great Depression. Some people were better at it than others. Some people were good at it on the first day, some not so much. Some people didn't even know that a Great Depression was happening because they were dirt poor farmers anyway. The quicker you can adapt, the quicker you can make a change to make things better, is the better off you'll be. Adaptability is going to make or break you during any emergency situation. Whether that be a Great Depression, whether that be SHTF all blown out, whether that be a hurricane. The hurricane knocks out the power, oh crap, now we don't have TVs. Now we actually have to talk to one another. That's adaptability. Pulling out the board games, lighting up some candles, that is adaptability. Alright guys, so is there anything I forgot? Tips, skills? I might have to make a couple more lists if you guys give me great ideas. Let me know down in the comments section below. Did you have family members? Did you have friends? Did you have relatives that lived through the first Great Depression? What did you learn from them? I enjoy watching Modern Refugee. He's got like all the old timer stories, and this is how the old people survived. And I'm like, yeah, cool. I like that. You know, a little 10-minute video. On 3 does the same thing with his grandma. Grandma sits down and talks about the Great Depression. She lived through it. I enjoy watching. There's not a lot of information about the Great Depression. Even though it lasted for 10 years, there's just not that much information about it. So, yeah. Anyway, I've enjoyed this little mini-series. Hope you guys take care. Again, if I forgot something, put it down below. Y'all stay safe out there.